Hello and welcome to the CFB KnowItAll. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble with the board here, but I'm your host, Alex Fernando, and this is the show on UNL's campus on 90.3 KRNU that you can get all of your college football news, all of the college football scores, just everything college football, all the stories. We got a great show for you tonight. I'm going to go through some scores, the highlights of the big games of this past weekend in college football. We're going to talk about Michigan. Are they back? Are they back to being one of the top teams? Are they going to be the Big Ten representative in the playoff? And then we're going to look out to the Pac-12, go out west. Wazoo upsetting Oregon this past weekend. Incredible game, incredible show for a college game day with the crowd up in Pullman. It's going to be absolutely crazy up there. And they got a good shot at making the playoffs. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. They're the Pac-12's best chance, in my opinion. We're going to look at Ohio State, Purdue, big upset, but an even bigger story behind the upset. And then, of course, the Huskers get their first win under new head coach Scott Frost. His first win as a Husker head coach comes against Minnesota. The crowd was going crazy. The stadium was electric. Frost even got a Gatorade bath at the end of it. Great win for the Huskers. We'll talk about that. Might even have a fan or a friend and call in, discuss the win. And then we're going to look at the upcoming playoff rankings. They come out next week. We're going to do little predictions on it. We're going to see if anyone can catch Bama. And basically, it just seems like everybody's fighting for the right to play Bama and lose because those guys are head and shoulders just out of this world. But a lot to cover here on College Football Know-It-All. A lot to see in this show. And I'm excited to get started. So we'll start it off with some scores. Obviously, the top-ranked teams overall did pretty well, but there's a couple that fell. Ohio State, the big one, 49-20 on the road at Purdue. Since 2010, Ross-Ade Stadium, where Purdue plays their home games, is the only venue that Ohio State has a losing record at on the road. So, big win for the Boilermakers. Again, we'll talk about that bigger story kind of behind the win a little bit later in the show. North Carolina State and Clemson, a battle of unbeatens. Clemson looked like they should, just dominating the Wolfpack, 41-7. And jumping into this game a little bit, coming in, everybody thought that this would be kind of tight. I even thought that it'd be a little bit tighter. Ryan Finley, senior quarterback, he's dealt with Clemson before. He knows how to play against them well. NC State's usually pretty tight, but Clemson's defense came out and they made a statement in this game. North Carolina State, they didn't score until the fourth quarter. So Clemson's just a team that they could honestly compete with Bama, in my opinion. They're probably the best chance because of their defense. Offensively, still got some work, and Bama's offense is tough to slow. So, Tua, he's going to get his numbers, but I would like to see him go up against Clemson defense. Why not have a Clemson-Bama round 4, right? We can make something interesting out of that. As we're moving on, looking out at the other scores throughout college football, LSU hosted Mississippi State, their second game against Bulldogs in 2 weeks. And this one is kind of a tight game overall just because low scoring, 19-3 final. LSU kind of pulled away with some late scores in the end, but just a very defensive, gritty game. Nick Fitzgerald threw 4 interceptions, I believe, and LSU was just dominating on defense. They have a bye week, and then they're heading into the game with Alabama. I'm guessing game day will probably be there. That's going to be a big matchup. Always a great rivalry between LSU and Bama. It's at home. It's in Death Valley. I think that's going to be a big help for the Tigers. But, man, this is going to be a great game next week. We got to, again, gearing up for the bye week. I think Bama's on their own bye week. So it's going to be, like, both teams are really gearing up and getting ready for this next game to come. Yes, they are. So 2 bye weeks and then LSU and Bama clash. And that's going to be quite the game and really, again, could decide the SEC West, as it usually does. Michigan gets the big win over their little brother, Michigan State. There was a lot of pregame antics before that. Michigan State has this tradition where they all walk arm in arm across the length of the field, just all the way down end zone to end zone. And some Michigan players were out warming up, and they just walk right into them and don't even break arms, and they just kind of roll through them. Michigan players did not take lightly to that, and Devin Bush, the Michigan linebacker, actually went up, tried to scrape up the Michigan State logo with his cleats after the game. Jim Harbaugh and Mark D'Antonio had some words firing back at each other. Harbaugh saying that D'Antonio was just smiling and laughing about the whole thing, and D'Antonio saying that that's bull and it's not true. So really crazy kind of happenings there. And, that's what happens with a rivalry. Michigan State kind of just always got that it factor when it comes to the rivalry. Harbaugh, though, gets a big win for Michigan, and that's what I'm going to lead in with my first story of the night. Is Michigan back? Are they good enough to win the Big Ten East and go to the Big Ten Championship and possibly even make the playoff? The back half of their schedule is what's really loaded. They've got back-to-back wins now against Wisconsin and Michigan State. They still have to finish out at Ohio State, so that one's on the road, which will be tough. But Penn State at home coming in a couple weeks. They got a bye week, so prepping for the Nittany Lions. And this is setting up nicely for Harbaugh to really set himself apart from the narrative that's been following him along for the last few years. Why is he always stuck just not beating his rivals, not winning the really big games, and not being able to get over the hump at Michigan, not bringing them to the level that they want to be at? They're 5-0 in conference, 7-1 over on the season. Their only loss to a 7-point loss in the beginning of the season to Notre Dame, a very solid, undefeated team in the top 5. So they're not looking too bad right now. Can they sustain this level of success is the big question, and I think they can. Their defense is one of the tops in the nation, and Shea Patterson is playing better every single game. Looking at Michigan defensively, though, they bring so much pressure to opposing quarterbacks, and the opposing quarterbacks don't even have time. After week 8 just finished, Michigan is now ranked number 1 in the nation in total defense. They give up an average of just 220 yards per game, which is absolutely absurd. The defensive especially is dominant on all facets of the ball. The running game is starting to get going now with Karan Higdon. Again, Shea Patterson, 12 TDs and 3 interceptions on the year, over 1,500 yards, playing a lot better in the system than he did those first couple games. And everybody's wondering, oh, was he really the fit? Yeah, he is. He's really the kind of quarterback that Jim Harbaugh wanted to utilize, can shift his system to make sure that Shea Patterson was able to really flourish in his pro-style system, but also bring that dual-threat ability to it as well. Again, their defense only giving up 220 total yards a game and then 14.4 points a game. So it's a big, big change from the last couple years. This defense has always been tough, but the offense really starting to get going. He's got a solid quarterback now, able to really, just step it up and really play to the level that they want to be at. Again, they got a bye week and then a very tough Penn State team with Trace McSorley and Miles Sanders coming. So watch for that game in a couple weeks there. A lot of things are going to be moving up for Michigan, but they have a manageable schedule. They got Penn State at home, and then it's kind of just cruising until they get over to Ohio State later this season. I think Michigan, honestly, has the best shot to win the Big Ten East and overall the Big Ten championship. Watching Ohio State-Purdue, again, we'll dissect that game a little bit later in the show, but watching Ohio State-Purdue, Michigan looks like a more complete team than the Buckeyes. Ohio State threw the ball 73 times against the Boilermakers, showing that they are completely one-dimensional. They don't think that J.K. Dobbins and Mike Weber are solid enough solid enough backs to really utilize and build a solid running game with. And obviously playing from behind, you got to throw the ball a little bit more to save time. But early in the game, throughout the season, Mike Weber and J.K. Dobbins have not been used for the Buckeyes, and there's some glaring issues in the secondary, as they found out against Purdue with David Blau throwing for over 300 yards and 3 touchdown passes again. Michigan looks like the most complete team in the East, and they're kind of sneaking up on people. Everybody obviously knows Michigan, but people are still like, oh, Ohio State, they're the team, and Michigan's still they're 5-0 in conference, leading the division now because Ohio State lost, and there's still obviously the big game that comes down between Ohio State and Michigan. That'll likely decide who goes to the Big Ten championship and potentially the college football playoff for the Big Ten. But right now, I'm saying Michigan is the most complete team in the Big Ten. They're the Big Ten's best chance to get to the college football playoff. I'm not saying they can quite hang with Bama yet, but I mean, hey, Shea Patterson at least has experience against Bama. The defense is up to a level where they could compete with just about anybody in the nation. I'm saying Michigan's back. I'm saying that they are the top team in the Big Ten right now, and they're going to prove it later this season. Now, the other big game that we wanted to point out is Oregon and Wazoo. Shifting over to the West Coast, nobody even thinks about the Pac-12 when it comes to playoffs. Washington, last team to get in for the Pac-12 2 years ago, everybody kind of said they shouldn't be there because of their cupcake schedule, and kind of the same with Washington State. Not a great non-conference schedule. Wyoming, San Jose State, and Eastern Washington. But in conference, they played really well. They still have a much tougher schedule in the back half. So this Oregon game kind of started the gauntlet for Washington State because they're at Stanford this weekend. They get a very tough Cal team at home. Then they're on the road to Colorado, and they finish the season with Washington. They do get that Apple Cup game at home, but their only loss right now is a 3-point loss on the road to a pretty decent USC team, and they've moved up to number 14 in the polls, the Cougars have. Gardner Minshew. That's the name you got to remember. This quarterback is lighting it up on the stat sheet. 23 touchdowns, nearly 2,800 yards on the season, and just 6 interceptions. That's what you're going to get in a Mike Leach offense. He's going to be throwing it everywhere. He's going to be crazy about it. But this kid, his stash is amazing. His ability to really read defenses and pick them apart is even more amazing. Watch out for this kid. At least maybe gets a couple Heisman nods because of his numbers. But again, because he's West Coast, they're not even going to look at him. I said this earlier in the year. I've said it on my blog. The Pac-12 is not going to get a team into the playoffs, but Washington State is their best chance. If they win out and you have a 12-1 conference champion Washington State Cougar team, that is a big argument to jump into the college football playoff with. But one, they got to win out. That's tough to begin with. And I still think even with a conference championship and a 12-1 record, Washington State would need a little bit of help from some top teams. Because if Notre Dame goes undefeated, they don't have the conference title, but the undefeated record people are going to look at over that conference title, perhaps. They've shown that before, not necessarily with the undefeated record, but that the conference title isn't quite as important as the better record versus just being the better team overall in certain games, certain key losses, things like that. If they win out, I think they probably should be in. I think a conference title should count a lot more than what the playoff committee might think that it is. But Washington State's team to watch for, they're the Pac-12's best chance to get into the playoffs. Or they knocked off Oregon, who was the previous best chance team, but the Ducks, they just could not get it going. Washington State's defense is what really impressed me in this game. Oregon's a high-powered offense. Justin Herbert is top QB in the nation, probably going very high in the next year's draft, and they shut him down very well. He was not able to find his receivers much. They weren't able to get much of a ground game going either. Their leading rusher, Verdell, he only had 55 yards total. Herbert did not, he was just a little over 50% of his passes, just under 60, I suppose. But again, not able to get into much of a rhythm, only 1 touchdown pass on the night. And Washington State just really dominated all phases of this football game. They're a good team. I'm still standing by the fact that I don't think the Pac-12 is going to get a team into the playoffs this year. Washington State's the best chance, but it's not going to happen. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We're going to talk to my friend Michael Ferguson, a fellow tour guide and Husker guide with me, did some former recruiting tours. We're going to talk about that Husker victory and what it means for this program, and then we'll look at the Ohio State-Purdue game and the big story of the weekend. Stay tuned. You're listening to College Football Know-It-All on 90.3 KRNU.
Whoa, what are you doing, honey?
What? I'm just cleaning up a stain in the baby's room.
Why don't you use a safer alternative? Bleach is a corrosive chemical that can really hurt someone, especially our daughter. It causes burns, eye damage, irritation, and it can have long-term effects on the environment, groundwater, and community.
Oh, where'd you hear about that, Miss Expert?
I've gone to one of their collection events. You can learn more at lincoln.ne.gov, keyword household.
A message from the Lincoln-Lancaster County Health Department.
100 years. A long time, right? The Daily Nebraskan has been the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's official student newspaper for over 100 years. UNL is a school of tradition, and that tradition includes the Daily Nebraskan. The Daily Nebraskan is your source for news, sports, arts and entertainment, and opinion. Everything is written by students, for students. Support the DN and pick up a paper copy, or go online. Remember the Daily Nebraskan. It's UNL tradition.
Are you among the millions of Americans living with chronic pain? If so, you may think prescription opioids are the solution. Truth is, opioids only mask the pain, and they come with serious side effects, from nausea to withdrawal symptoms to overdose. There is another choice: physical therapy. Physical therapists treat pain through movement and exercise. Choose physical therapy. Visit moveforwardpt.com. This public service announcement is brought to you by the American Physical Therapy Association.
Welcome back to College Football Know-It-All. I'm your host here, Alex Fernando, and you're listening on 90.3 KRNU. Nebraska won a football game, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness. The Cornhuskers are 1-6 on the season, knocking Minnesota 53-28 in what might be one of the biggest wins in just recent Nebraska history, because this is Scott Frost's first win as head coach. This is the first win of the Scott Frost era, moving forward, turning that corner, turning back to what Nebraska football really wants to be and really is expected to be year in and year out. There's a lot of the culture change that's been happening all year, guys leaving, guys not getting to play as much as they thought they would, switching around the roster a little bit. But Nebraska came in to this game really ready to play. I really expected them to, especially after that loss a week ago to Northwestern on the road. Had the game wrapped up in overtime, then they had it, then Northwestern drives back, gives up the TD, sends it to overtime, and once you went to overtime, I kind of had a gut feeling Northwestern had this. And no discredit to Northwestern, they're a great football program, but Nebraska really, really blew away that win. And again, it's just been the dumb penalties all season, and it's been the struggles on defense, not being able to get to the quarterback, not being able to tackle well, or really, especially cover. The secondary's been really struggling this season, but Nebraska got the win today, or this past Saturday. Minnesota, 0-4 in conference now. They're struggling, obviously. They're in a transition as well. And it looks like just in time. My friend Michael's calling in. We're going to get him on the air here and talk about that Husker victory. Due to some technical difficulties, we only had the last part of Michael's conversation. Here's what he had to say about Stanley Morgan.
I think it's kind of his last chance to make a solid footprint here at the university. As far as Nebraska's program, I mean, he's had a great career so far here, but I think he's really got a shot to really leave his mark in the record books here at the university. So I think that's kind of what he might be going for. I know that's what I'd be going for if I had his skill set. And I think just kind of a little bit of redemption from last year. Last year was a tough year, going 4 and whatever. What did we go 4 and 8?
Yep.
4 and 8, yeah. So I mean, getting through with that was just tough. And so as a player and as a competitor like he is, I'm sure he's looking to do something big here this year.
Definitely. And then, again, that was my second to last question, but my real last question, as a fan, do you think it's important to really enjoy this win but not get too hyped because, one, Minnesota's not the best team. This is only the first win. We still have to go to Ohio State and to Iowa. Michigan State comes to us. There's still a lot of schedule left. And I've heard around campus and some people texting me and stuff just saying, like, oh, my gosh, we can, win out or we're going to really be competitive in all these games and stuff. And, there's still a lot of issues with this team, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, they've got room to work, that's for sure. I mean, they're not by any means done, and they're not where they want to be. I think one thing heard from Coach Frost is to enjoy the win for the 24 hours. Take it in, but then you're back to work on Monday, and I think that's what they did today.
Yeah, they actually took off practice today, and I'm going to start game prep tomorrow.
Okay, well. Shows how much I pay attention.
Yeah, but no, you're right. Definitely, again, enjoy. I like that message though. Enjoy the win for the day. Enjoy it for maybe 2 days for this one because it's kind of special. But you still got more football to play, and especially with an FCS team coming in, you don't want to look bad in that situation, and especially give up at the worst case scenario a loss, but even just a close game coming off a 53-point performance, right?
Yeah. You don't want to come out flat. And honestly, I don't think they will. To be honest, I feel like we've had some issues where it's kind of walking off the field honestly, a little bit embarrassed. And I don't think that – I think they've gotten to the point where they refuse to let that happen again. So I don't think that's not something I'm super concerned about. Obviously, it's a possibility on any given night the best team in the world could lose. But I don't think this team is going to allow that to happen anymore this season.
Yeah, I don't think so either, and I really appreciate you calling in, Michael. I'll let you get going off to the rest of your night, but thank you for calling in to College Football Know-It-All, and always good to have you on air.
All right, thank you very much. I'll talk to you later.
See you, buddy.
Bye.
Again, that was my friend Michael Ferguson, a colleague of mine who has done multiple recruiting tours throughout our college career for the university football program. So definitely kind of knows what it takes to be part of this program and what this win really means for this team because we've actually helped recruit some of the guys on the team. So a big win for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Again, as a Husker fan, I'm excited. I'm hyped that we scored 53 points and dominated this game from start to finish for the most part. But as an analyst, there's still a lot of things with this team that need to be fixed moving forward. There's still a lot of issues that are going to cause this team to trip up if they're not careful. One of the biggest, penalties and special teams. there's still an issue with this team because, one, that's where most of the penalties occur is on special teams, and Nebraska's special teams unit has not looked good at any point this season. Multiple times have they given up big returns. Multiple times have they not been able to block for their own returns and just given up big hits on their guys or giving up penalties. So on a big return, it gets called back. And it looks like our punt return team has just resorted to fair catching everything. That way they for sure don't have any penalties. This is a big glaring issue for this coaching staff, and it's kind of frustrating that 7 games in now, nothing has really been fixed. Nothing's been really addressed because this team still struggles to field the ball on special teams, or especially cover a special teams. Minnesota had a massive kick return that nearly went to the house just because, again, Nebraska does not know how to stay in their lanes well. They haven't been closing well to the ball on special teams. So, again, as a fan, this is a great win. Everybody's really hyped. Don't just start chugging all the Kool-Aid right away, though. There's still a lot of progress to go with this team before they're anywhere competitive in the Big Ten, let alone in the college football playoff world. Great win by the Huskers. Adrian Martinez was absolutely phenomenal. Again, breaking a 44-year Husker record with his 86.2 completion percentage, highest ever by a Husker quarterback. And that was incredible. He played a phenomenal game. He had one bad series with the illegal forward pass and the intentional grounding on it, but other than that, this kid is lights out. And as Michael mentioned, he's 18 years old. He's a true freshman. This kid is only been on campus for a few months here. I mean, he came in the spring, so he was available for the spring semester as well, but he hasn't been here at Nebraska for even a full year. Coming from California, hasn't played football since the start of this season, since his junior year. So the way he's been able to pick up this offense, really dive into what Scott Frost is preaching and this coaching staff wants him to learn, and just great chemistry with the rest of his teammates. He and J.D. Spielman honestly never miss a step. Those two are on a new kind of wavelength because their connection throughout the passing game is incredible. The timing that Adrian Martinez has, the awareness that he has too, and that intentional grounding penalty. Yeah, it ended up being intentional grounding, but that's because he just bombed it deep because he knew he was about to get sacked and he knew nobody was back there. So it ended up being intentional grounding. He's got to learn to move out of the pocket and throw it away or throw it to the feet of one of his one of his receivers or something. But still, just the awareness to get rid of that ball and avoid the sack, avoid the loss of yardage. This kid's only 18 years old, and he's playing like this as a true freshman. He's one of only 2 players in the nation to average over 50 yards rushing a game and 225 yards passing a game. The only other player to do that is Kyler Murray of Oklahoma, one of the top Heisman candidates in the nation and one of the best players in the nation. And Martinez is right there with him. So just you can see a lot of raw talent, a lot of raw just play because he's not experienced. Next year, junior year, this kid's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the country. Just the way he's playing. And jumping back to that running game too, Devine Zigbo really has stepped out into the spotlight this season. He's been jumping kind of back and forth all his career here at Nebraska. He's had a couple games where he didn't even get to play because of coaching decisions, and you just have to think like, what did this kid do, or why is he not playing? Like, he's supposed to be one of our top backs. And now he's proven that he really is the top back and wants to be the top back. He's had competition before with other backs and just hasn't been able to break out of that room as the number one guy. It's clear that he is the number one guy. He's gotten more speed. He's running a lot harder with a lot more purpose. And he's really leading this ground attack that's starting to build for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Great win by the Huskers football team. And they have a conference win. That's more than even Minnesota can say. This team's gonna have a few more wins throughout the season. Bethune-Cookman should be a solid victory this weekend. If it's not, we're gonna be in trouble. But this team has potential to hang around with other schools. Like, they hung around with Wisconsin for a little bit. They were with Northwestern the whole game, and honestly should have won that game. They were with Colorado, should have won that game. Ohio State, Iowa, Michigan State, all tough teams coming up, but all teams that Nebraska can at least hang with for a little while, and that'll show you what the potential is moving forward for this team. Still a long ways to go. Great win by Coach Frost. I know he's glad to get that monkey off his back, but don't don't freak out and say that we're wanting Bama or that we want to go to the college football playoff or we're making a bowl and all these kind of things. This is a long process. Long process. It's going to take a few years, and Nebraska's in the right path, though. And this game really proved it. Switching gears a little bit, we're going to go over to the Ohio State-Purdue game. And Nebraska's win was incredibly special. I had a great time at the game, watching and being part of that first victory. The stadium was electric. Everybody was so hyped afterwards. But the best part of Saturday was the Ohio State-Purdue game. And not just because Purdue upset Ohio State, and it's always fun to watch Ohio State lose, and chaos and all that, but one, because the Boilermakers really showed that they are a dangerous team, like I've been saying all season. Their 0-3 record to start the season is not indicative of what this team can do. Having the privilege to call their game on radio against the Huskers, I really got to see in depth what this team plays like and what they can do with Jeff Brom. Incredible coach, incredible system. They're going to be a big danger in the Big Ten, but the most special part of the weekend and most special part of this game was Tyler Trent. The big Purdue fan, he's battling terminal cancer for the second time now. He's beat cancer once, and now he's back at it with another bout. And just all the best to Tyler, first of all, in his fight. And incredible story. They did a feature of him on game day, and it made me tear up, honestly. It was one of the most beautiful, well-written stories I've ever seen and ever gotten the privilege to watch. And seeing his passion for the game, seeing his passion just to support football, support the Boilermakers, and support Purdue, even though he's going through something so much bigger and so much more serious than a simple football game, is amazing to show that he still has a positive outlook on everything. And definitely always makes me think that, hey, you don't really have it that bad in some bad situations. Like, this kid's got it a lot worse, and he's making the most out of it, and he makes it as an amazing thing sometimes. He was a special guest at the game, got to go to the locker room afterwards, got interviewed. I'm going to play you just a little bit of his interview in a moment. Again, just an incredible story on his support for the team, but also how the team supports him. He's good friends with Jeff Brom now and David Blau, the quarterback, and gets to really be part of the team as not only just a big fan, but also as someone who really inspires this team to strive for more and show what they can do. So here we'll listen into his interview with Tom Rinaldi on the sideline towards the end of that Ohio State game. Just an incredible, incredible moment. This is, again, my favorite moment from the entire weekend. Best part of what football is made for. Take a listen.
How do you explain it?
Unexplainable. That's Boilermaker spirit right there.
When you were dreaming of trying to get here, fighting through what you've been through over the last weeks, how did you envision this night playing out?
Not like this, honestly. Ohio State has a really good football team, and I knew we had a chance, but I didn't think it was going to be 42-20. That's for sure.
You texted me during the fourth quarter that you could barely breathe. Why?
I was holding my breath. Ohio State always has a chance. You can't give them any breathing room. That's why. I was holding my breath. Didn't want them to come back and beat us.
For everyone watching now, let them know, Tyler. What's a Boilermaker?
Apparently me, according to David Blau, but a Boilermaker is the team that won on the field this evening is made up of Boilermakers. That's what Boilermakers are, right there. So.
Congratulations on a great win, the one that you foresaw and few other people did. I know you're headed to the locker room. I know you're going to enjoy that. Great win.
Thank you.
Guys,
boiler up. You know it. Boiler up, hammer down.
He said the Boilermaker team embodies the spirit. I think they would all say that young man
sure does
embodies what the Boilermaker spirit is.
Again, incredible story, an incredible moment for Tyler Trent there. I'm really glad Purdue got the win. Not just because they beat Ohio State and caused some chaos, but especially for Tyler. That was his dream to go to that game earlier this season. It's not likely that he'll be able to make another game this season. It's sad to say that his days are limited, but just a big support and big prayers out to Tyler for his fight. An incredible story. It was great story and well done, and great win by Purdue. Breaking down into this game, it was this is really special. David Blau has now thrown for over 1,200 yards in just the past 4 games and only 2 interceptions. This leadership role that he's been thrown into, taking over the top quarterback spot, he's really shown that he is the guy for this team. And last year when I had my radio show with my partner Nate, we had an argument on one of our shows saying David Blau versus Elijah Sindelar. I thought Sindelar was better, and David Blau has proven me wrong. Sindelar did win MVP honors of the bowl game last year, and he is a very capable quarterback. But David Blau's play this season has been phenomenal. Just in the Ohio State game, he had 378 yards and 3 touchdowns, earned Big Ten Player of the Week honors. And so far this season, he's got over 2,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Again, he barely played the first couple games because he was splitting time between Elijah Sindelar. He's taken over since the Missouri game and has been absolutely lights out, throwing for 13 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, but his completion percentage is what's really baffling. He's throwing for 66.5%, 66.5% completion percentage on the season, so really accurate and really smart with his plays. DJ Knox in the running game, Markel Jones in the running game, that kind of two-headed rushing monster for Purdue. It was funny because they weren't even really trying to run up the score much and stuff. They were just trying to run the ball to milk the clock a little bit late in the game, but kept breaking open huge running gaps. And DJ Knox was able to take them to the house, and so it's pretty crazy to watch the end of that game. But again, glaring issues for Ohio State on defense. This team has a lot of big holes. They struggled last week against Minnesota, and you think, maybe that's just a fluke. They're kind of overlooking them and whatever. But then they get to this week, they're on the road. Purdue had a fantastic defensive game plan, really putting a lot of pressure on Dwayne Haskins. And again, he threw the ball 73 times in this game. Oh, you can tell Ohio State is completely one-dimensional, and the fact that they just don't have a running game. Their lead rusher was Mike Weber with 45 yards. Not a great way to balance your offense there. They finished with 76 yards as a team. And, they did run the ball 25 times. So Ohio State ran nearly 100 plays on offense compared to Purdue, which ran just a little over 70 plays. Again, the disconnect, having 3/4 of your offense be passing for a team that has 2 capable running backs in J.K. Dobbins and Mike Weber just baffles me. And again, no discredit to Purdue's defense because they played a phenomenal game, brought pressure all over the point, and also Purdue was up a lot, so Ohio State kind of had to come back and throw the ball as Purdue was up 21-6 going into the fourth quarter and then scored 4 more touchdowns in the fourth quarter alone. But the running game for Purdue was starting to step up. Markel Jones didn't have a big impact on this one, but DJ Knox really stepped up. And those 2 running backs, I watched them against Nebraska live, got to call the game, and those 2 running backs together really give a nice 1-2 punch. And the rest of the Big Ten is going to have to watch out. Purdue is 3-1 in the conference. They're well within the fight for the Big Ten West Division with Iowa and Wisconsin and even Northwestern. So definitely keep this team in mind. They're a very dangerous team. That offense can score on just about anybody. David Blau is playing as well as any quarterback in the nation, and defense making a lot of big plays against a top-notch offense like Ohio State. Last thing I'm going to mention, though, about this game, Rondell Moore. He was the co-freshman Big Ten Player of the Week with Adrian Martinez of Nebraska. Rondell Moore is just an absolute phenomenal football player. He might be my favorite player in college football right now. He's right up there with Adrian because Adrian's been amazing as well. But this kid is absolutely electric. 12 catches for 170 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then he also ran the ball a couple times for 24 yards. He's big in the return game. And it's just incredible to watch this kid work. My favorite play was at the end of the game just to seal the deal for Purdue. They just did a little swing pass to him, trying to get yards for a first down. And his speed is just so incredible. It just runs around the outside of the defender, runs up, gets the first down, breaks some tackles, slips underneath the guy, and then takes off and outruns everybody for a touchdown. He is one of the most dangerous players in not only the Big Ten, but all of college football. And he might even be up for some hardware at the end of the year. But if not this year, later on down the road, this kid is special. You're going to want to watch him going forward. And we'll also watch out for Purdue going forward later this Big Ten season. We'll be taking just a quick break, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes. I'm going to go through my projected playoff rankings coming out next week, along with some news around college football. We got some news down in Fort Worth with TCU, and just kind of look a little bit at this upcoming week. And again, can anybody catch Alabama this season? Are they really that far ahead of every other team in the nation. We'll take a look at all that and more when you come back to College Football Know-It-All here on 90.3 KRNU. Getting involved on campus, meeting new friends, and networking for the future can seem scary, but Scarlet Guard makes it easy for both graduate and undergraduates. Social events help students connect with others around campus, while the professional events help students network with alumni from around the globe. Possibilities within Scarlet Guard are endless, so join today. Go to huskeralum.org/scarletguard or contact the Nebraska Alumni Association. Students today, alumni tomorrow, Huskers forever.
If you enjoy working out but don't have the money to afford a gym membership, have no worries and come on over to the UNL Campus Recreation Center. We have state-of-the-art facilities from our luxurious weight room to our 100-yard all-purpose turf field and cook pavilion. All free. Yeah, I said it. All free just for you. Just come on over. It's only a short walk. Located on both City Campus and East Campus. Call 402-472-3467. UNL Campus Recreation Center. Get fit.
Imagine what it would be like to live in a different country for a month, a couple months, or even a year. You may think,
I don't have money for that.
Or,
it won't fit into my 4-year college plan.
But the Education Abroad office at UNL wants you to know an education abroad is possible for anyone. There are over 400 scholarships to help fund your trip and an advising staff ready to assist with all the planning. So set up your advising session today. Go to educationabroad.unl.edu. The world is waiting for you.
Welcome back into CFB Know-It-All. I'm your host, Alex Fernando. And finishing up our show tonight, we're going to be talking about the upcoming college football playoff rankings next week. We're going to be talking about some news around college football. And I'm going to start this off with an analysis of the Nick Bosa situation. So for those of you who don't know, last week, Nick Bosa announced that he was not returning to Ohio State. He withdrew from school, withdrew from classes, and withdrew from the team, and is now solely focused on getting healthy for the upcoming NFL draft this coming spring. This raised a lot of questions, and again, just goes back to both sides of like players leaving and doing their own thing. A little bit reminiscent of kind of what the NBA and college hoops is kind of dealing with, where do the kids really need to do the one and done year, or can they go play overseas for a year and then come back or play? And now the NBA just announced that their D League was offering contracts to select players so they could play basketball there for a year and then move up to the NBA draft and not have to go to college for a year. So a bit reminiscent of that, but basically it just comes down to how much does the team matter? And that's kind of what the big question is for Nick Bosa, is like, this kid is a captain of the Ohio State football program. He has been a leader on this team for years, following in his brother's footsteps. He's their leading pass rusher. He's one of the most dominant players in all of college football. And he got injured in the TCU game, a groin injury. He's been struggling to get back and recover from that. So that's what he's going to focus more on now. And he just looks at his situation. He says, I'm destined for the NFL. Why do class? Why spend my time trying to rehab and play for Ohio State again when I can just get rehabbed and get ready to play for something I'm going to make money for? So it's that argument of how much does the team matter? You would think that as a player, with your brothers out there on the field, with the guys you're fighting with, your coach, all of that means a lot to you. And especially when you're voted a team captain and you're voted as one of the leaders on this squad, you would think that he would want to stay. Personally, I'm a big team guy. I think that you got to have equal respect across the board with your team, and you got to be willing to do anything for the guy standing next to you and really fight with him to make a team really work and become the best team in the nation. And it's weird for me to think that you could just get up and leave and be like, yeah, no, guys, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to go do my own thing. But you're seeing a lot more and more in that. And Nebraska felt a little bit about that with all the players leaving throughout the year and early on not quite buying into Scott Frost's system. That's a little bit different because that's kind of a culture change rather than knowing the culture's established, knowing you're one of the people who established that culture, and then just being like, I think I'm done. So that's what Nick Bosa did. There's also the big argument, though, and I've always been kind of neutral on this, but a little bit more on the player side of it, where people get upset that players leave early from college to go to the NFL. And people are like, why don't you finish your college degree, or why would you leave your team, and things like that. In some cases, it's good to stay back, obviously to get your degree and stuff, but it's good to stay back just to develop football-wise for another year for the NFL. My family and I have talked about this before, and we always say the NFL, it stands for not for long, because you don't have a very long career typically in the NFL. You can get injured, and it can be even shorter than what it was meant to be even. There's not a lot of people like Tom Brady who are going to last until they're 41 plus, or Peyton Manning, or Ray Lewis, or Terrell Suggs and stuff. All those guys who are just legends and playing just because they still can by somehow. Not everybody's going to get that opportunity, and why wouldn't you go and make your money now? Why wouldn't you go and take care of your business now, have some fun with it, do it while you're younger and have the ability to do it? Because later on, you're not going to get the chance in the NFL. You're not going to get drafted at 30 plus, so you can't wait around. Obviously, no college-age kid is going to wait around that long. But I'm just saying, the point is, like, why would you wait when you can go make that money now and you can always go back and finish your college degree? That's not a difficult thing to go back and start up again. It's not the easiest thing by any means, but you have that setup there where you can put it on pause for a little bit, go make your money, come back and be a little bit maybe financially better prepared to handle it. But know that you did what you wanted to do. And this is where I'm kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, because Nick Bosa is doing what he wants to do. He knows that he's destined for the NFL. He wants to be destined for the NFL. The best way for him to get to the NFL is to stop playing football at Ohio State, get healthy, and get ready for the NFL. If I'm an Ohio State football player and one of my captains is just stepping out and throws up the peace signs as deuces and goes out to do his own thing, I'm like, then you got to reflect on, okay, why did we pick this guy as a leader in the first place if this was kind of his mentality? And that just kind of goes back to a culture thing there, but really interesting situation in Columbus. Overall, it's not going to affect their football program too terribly much. They still have a great, talented roster, very great coaching staff football-wise, and they're going to be okay. But it's just, again, you're seeing this more and more in college football, is like, how much do these kids care about the team versus their own future? And then, the arguments can be made for both. You do got to take care of yourself at some point, though. And your teammates can't give you everything that the NFL can. So, interesting decision by Nick Bosa, but I don't think this is the last kind of decision we're going to see in the upcoming years of college football. Now, speaking of some upcoming years in college football, and how about just some recent years, can anyone catch Bama? This team looks like the New England Patriots of college football. Like, nobody can touch them. They're just always in the Super Bowl. They're always in the national championship. They're always winning. Nobody can touch these guys. They put up another 50-some on Tennessee this weekend, just pounding them. And I thought, honestly, that game would be a little bit closer because I thought Jeremy Pruitt would know the Bama system a little bit. But it's just absolutely ridiculous. Tua Tagovailoa has not played a single snap in the fourth quarter of a game this year. He has a little bit of an injured knee too, so that's part of the reason they don't need to play him the whole game either, though, because of the score. But when you're at a point where you can throw in your second and third string players for the entire fourth quarter, maybe even some of the third quarter if you wanted to, you are at an unreal level for this team. And an unreal level compared to the competition in college football. That's why Bama's so far head and shoulders against the rest. They haven't had the toughest schedule the first half of the season, so I don't want to throw too much into it saying that Bama is truly the end-all be-all of college football this year. They faced one ranked team so far this season. It was Texas A&M, and Texas A&M hung around for a little bit. That's been their most competitive game. They got a bye week, and then the last few weeks of their season are going to be the toughest. They're on the road at number 4 LSU. That's going to be the biggest game of the year in the SEC. Mississippi State, they have their classic FCS team right before Auburn for a guaranteed win. And then they have Auburn to finish off the season in the Iron Bowl. So the last 3 out of the last 4 games are going to be their toughest. All very capable teams, especially LSU and Auburn. Auburn kind of fallen off a little bit this last couple of weeks, but LSU obviously very tough defense. Compared to the rest of the nation, though, you saw Ohio State go down to Purdue. You saw Clemson kind of hang around, or Syracuse hang around with Clemson and nearly beat them earlier this year. Clemson's looking back to the kind of normal we expected with their defense dominating so well the last couple games. But you look at these other top teams. You look at Notre Dame, and they were in a tight game with Pitt the other week, and they've had a lot of tight ones. Michigan losing the opener to Notre Dame and then starting to play well. They haven't played a ton of competition. Their last couple of weeks have been tough competition. They've looked good, so how much of that can they sustain? But nobody's even challenged Alabama yet. And even if you're mediocre college football team, you should be able to challenge somebody a little bit. Nebraska challenged Wisconsin for a while, but these teams are getting blown out in the first quarter. Tua could probably stop playing in the first quarter, and Alabama would still win these games. I'm anxious to see. Again, we got 2 weeks to wait and see on this Alabama-LSU game. But right now, this year does not look like anybody can touch Alabama, which is kind of sad because I like to see the chaos. But this team is incredible. All of their wide receivers and Tua, they're all sophomores basically, so they're going to be here for another couple years. Their defense is young, but still playing as one of the best in the nation. Not quite as top-notch as normal Alabama defenses, giving up a few more points than normal, but still very, very tough to beat this team. Now, the last thing we're going to cover for the night, next week, in 8 days, week from tomorrow, the first college football playoff rankings of 2018 come out, and I'm excited. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be crazy to see where everybody sets them. Now, the initial rank, the first week rankings are usually pretty easy because at this point in the season, we see Bama, Clemson, Notre Dame all at the top, 1, 2, and 3 there with 8-0, 7-0, 7-0 records. And then you have LSU, Michigan, 7-1 right behind them, Georgia and Texas and Oklahoma following. These are in the AP and the coaches poll here, but so in the AP, our top 10 right now, Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, LSU, Michigan, Texas, Georgia, Oklahoma, Florida, UCF. So, UCF's not going to get the credit they deserve. They're not going to be favored. They're not going to get into the playoff. But the rest of them, they're all the Power 5. They're all branded programs. So they all have the potential to get in the playoff. The opening week, again, usually is pretty predictable. The big question is going to be where they rank LSU and Michigan. Now, LSU has a bye week, and Michigan does play this weekend. Wait, no, they might have a bye week as well. No, they do have a bye week. So LSU and Michigan both have a bye week this coming week. So that fourth spot could be kind of up for grabs. Just that fourth spot shouldn't mean too much this next week because both these teams are coming off byes. Both of them have solid wins. They have the same record. They've been playing really well. I think LSU is probably going to get the nod just because of the competition against Georgia and the way they played against Georgia. And then, again, Michigan's played tough competition with Wisconsin and Michigan State back-to-back. LSU had Georgia and Mississippi State back-to-back. So I'm anxious to see, but I wouldn't worry too much about that fourth spot. The top three, I think, are going to be Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame. Oklahoma, Texas, Georgia, all kind of on that outside looking in. Florida even on the outside looking in. That's going to be Florida, Georgia might sneak in to that 5 or 6 spot based on their game this weekend, the world's largest outdoor barbecue or something like that with the rivalry. Georgia and Florida play this weekend. Winner of that has, again, a big inside track to the SEC East title, apart from Kentucky standing in their way. And again, Florida has the loss to Kentucky. Georgia has yet to play Kentucky. That'll be in a couple weeks' time. They get back-to-back games with Florida and then Kentucky. So big couple weeks for Georgia. This will really determine if they're a team that is going to be deserving of getting back into the college football playoffs. I'm anxious to see what happens. One last bit of college football news for you before I head out. Kevontae Turpin, star wide receiver of TCU, has been arrested for assault down in Fort Worth, Texas. First of all, not okay in any situation, but really upset to see this out of a player who I thought was just a phenomenal athlete. Obviously, some off-the-field issues, and Gary Patterson has already said he's suspended for at least the Kansas game. They're still gaining details on what happened with the situation. Sounded like he dragged his girlfriend across a parking lot, and the police obviously came and arrested him. Their school has said that they are aware of the situation again. Everything's still being investigated. He'll for sure be suspended for the Kansas game. Coach Patterson said, but not a good look and not a good loss, or not helpful for TCU. The big loss, he's one of their top playmakers. They've been struggling this season on offense. Losing him will be tough. But thank you all for listening. This was College Football Know-It-All. I'm your host, Alex Fernando. Thank you all again. I appreciate you listening. Tune in next week at 7 on Monday evening for some more college football news. And be sure to check out my blog, College Football Know-It-All. I'll be posting my reflection post about the Nebraska game later this evening, along with a recording of the Raiders show, so you can listen to it all over again. You listen to 90.3 KRNU. This has been College Football Know-It-All, and I'm Alex Fernando. We'll catch y'all later.